today we are talking to Alex White.
And Alex is
Awesome.
He owns and started Peak Performance, Peak Human Performance. It's not performance for a car or an animal.
Humans only.
It's for humans only. Mm-hmm. It's a very exclusive club that trains human beings how to be better humans, specifically around their bodies.
Yes.
So,
but not limited to.
But not limited to their bodies, because that kind of extends into all areas of their life, which Alex talks a little bit about their 8-week challenge and kind of how that was the start of something really cool.
Exactly.
We met Alex because his now wife, Amy, made him talk to us or suggested that way he talk to us.
Well,
we'll never know. You'll have to ask them. And we had known Amy through, she modeled on a photo shoot, yeah?
Yep.
Is that the first time we met her?
Yep.
Right. And she is very cool. And she introduced us to her then boyfriend. Mm-hmm. Gosh, that is like so long ago.
I know, right?
And Alex was kind of working on his own brand, it was called How Strong is Strong. Mm-hmm. And that was the thing he was mainly developing. And then this gym was just kind of a side thing that he had been working on.
Well, no, it was up and running.
It was up and running, but it wasn't his own brand was because he talks about this in the episode. Yeah. He talks about having to sort of figure out how to balance building a team in a gym and a space, but then also having his own brand and where to invest and how to sort of balance both of those things.
Yep.
Which I think is
a lot of people struggle with your own brand versus your business brand, and making that choice I think was important for him to make. And so we helped him on his personal brand stuff, and he ended up pivoting and focusing a little bit more on his training facility. I wouldn't even call it, a training facility. Seems more like legit.
I don't know. They do some virtual training for people. So.
Oh, true. Yeah. So they're really cool.
They're like so Alex is the type of trainer, we don't get into this as much as I would like to in this episode, but he's the type of trainer who I remember when I was having all those knee problems. Like I was like,
or even your elbow.
My elbow for sure.
Yeah.
He fixed my elbow at a party we threw, and I was probably like hungover, or drunk or something at the time. I was like, my elbow's sore, and he was like, do this and this, and then I fixed it.
Yep.
And then but my knees were sore, and I remember writing him this long email. I was like, dude, I don't know what to do. I'm 30, and my knees feel like I'm 70.
Yeah.
And so I went out there. And I had to wait for him for a little bit because he was in another meeting. And the two people who were waiting in the gym were a surgeon and a physical therapist. Mm-hmm. Both people who know
a little bit about the body.
And they were telling me how impressed they were with how knowledgeable Alex was with the human body.
That's awesome.
And so you have these people who have, PhDs who are like, this is the trainer who knows. And so I worked with him for an hour, and my knees were great after that. He showed me stretches to do. He helped me sort of, I don't really know what was going on. I just know that he's the person I ask when I have a question like that.
Yeah. It's a pretty great intro.
It is a pretty great intro. I dig it.
Yeah.
Also, your brother is a trainer at that gym.
Yep.
That's it, I think. Without any further build up.
Keep listening. Goodbye.
Thinking of things really around the 1 to 2 year mark that I felt like were important, maybe to me, and I think that I guess maybe I sometimes consider myself to be different than most, only because of how I thrive on being critiqued and trying to make myself better. And like you just mentioned, it's a huge important component to me to invest time and energy into people, whether that is clients or that's people that I work with. And a lot of it stems from me, myself, wanting to be better, is how I think about it. I always think back into high school when you are surrounded by people and everybody's afraid to say what they really think or feel. You feel like you have to wear these masks to, be the cool kid or to be whatever. And I've always I've always watched that, and I've always hated that. So it's part of the reason why I always allow myself to be open to trying a million different things. You know, to play a varsity sport, to be in the choir, to be in a play, like a school-sponsored play, or to be on the chess team, or to do all of these things. And I think that's something that I see now as being like an important component to helping other people like recognize, understand, develop themselves. Because what ends up happening is if I can make or point those people in a direction or give them some little bit of advice that helps them improve upon themselves, then I'm surrounding myself with better people. And instead of them wearing masks to just please me or the environment, they are now pushing me to be better, and I'm pushing them to be better. And between the two of us, we grow more, as opposed to them just showing up, doing their job and doing whatever, or just showing up and working out and then leaving. Like, there's so much more depth to it. And I think the other component that I've realized over the years, especially with my industry and my sport, or my particular profession, is that in sport, there's like this period where everybody is fighting to gain the physical edge. But the thing that I've learned in working with those people who are in the top 1% is that there is really no difference between the physical capability of all of these people. The thing that makes the difference is the mental piece. And the desire to continue to push themselves or to want more for themselves and to not be satisfied once you've attained that, right? It's like the idea of an astronaut who gets all the way out and sees space, and then they come back and they've got this complex and they're like, what the fuck else is there? You know what I mean? And everybody's constantly striving or driving to reach and attain something, but then what do you do once you get there? And it's like, all right, well, if nobody's ever told you that this is what it's going to be like on the other side, or this is what you need to do to figure out what you're supposed to do when you get to the other side, then once you get there, you're lost. And that's when everything falls apart.
Did you have a place, was there like a coach or a team or a place that you played or worked that somebody was like that to you, or is this something that you were frustrated because you didn't see it anywhere?
Correct. I think it came out of, it all comes from not knowing anybody else who pushes that way, or who wants other people around them to be as great as they can be. Like as a young adult growing up and working in different environments, it was always just show up and do your job. Like, that's it. Like, I don't need you to do anything else, just do this. And there was never a general interest in like who I was as an individual, what I was into, what I wanted to become. It was just show up and do that. And I felt like I am more than this, and you are not genuinely interested in me, so I am not genuinely vested in growing you or your company.
For sure.
So like for me, it was just like, all right, punch the clock. I'm in, I'm out. Like, I'm going to do this until I can do that. And it was always like that. You know.
And then when you had your own thing, you wanted it to be different. Did that? Because you started. When did you start Peak? You started Peak in 2014. And before that, you were training somewhere else, or what were you doing?
So I've been coaching and training for like 13 years. I mean, since before, like even when I was in high school, I was still coaching. Like coaching swimming, coaching football, and working for other coaches was the first like kind of insight to that, because what the industry typically does is like they just want to like en masse get as many clients as possible and then do whatever it takes to keep them. And that doesn't always mean get them results. And that's kind of like a huge change overall in the industry, is that as science got better, communication got better, podcasts and internet and all these other things, like you couldn't just get clients and be a smooth talker. Like, you literally needed to get them results, and if you couldn't do that, your client was going to find out what you were doing wrong and then leave. You know, because
they're just sitting and watching Instagram, like they're watching the other they're following 20 trainers.
You got it.
And they're watching that trainer post before and after pictures or pictures of their athletes,
and they're wondering why isn't this happening to me, or they're bringing something to that coach and saying, well, can you tell me about like this diet, or can you tell me about like this exercise, like why isn't this good or why is this bad? You know, and what ended up happening was like the quality of training needed to come up, But what I still think is lacking in that is that the coaching component, right, when I started, has changed immensely. And what I have always focused on is the development of the person, right? And pushing them to think outside of the box, you know, as a client, and for whatever they're working for, whether it's to gain weight, to lose weight, to run faster, to run longer, you know, whatever that is, you don't just do that because it's fun. Like, you're doing that because you're trying to prove something either to yourself or to someone else. There's an underlying psychological component to that. And if I can tap into that and help someone push for that, or to identify what it is, or to create a path to accomplish that, it's no longer just a physical challenge. It's now a psychological challenge. And when you're mentally committed to something, you're physically inclined to go and do it more or harder, or to suffer the consequences, because you know what the gain is on the other side.
Sure.
Yeah. So thinking about that, you know, over the years as training has changed and I've recognized these things, I found that other coaches that I worked with or for never had that same kind of ideology or philosophy. And what the end result was that you would see coaches who would have a client for, let's say, 3 months or 6 months, and then the client would be gone, right? Because they weren't getting results. So what you have is a great salesperson, but a shitty coach.
Right, you get someone to sign up and then they're done.
You got it, yeah. And they're great at that, but they constantly are having to work, right, to keep getting new people, because they just can't keep the back end. And then the other thing that I saw was that people who maybe weren't as great at doing the sales piece and acquiring clients, but they were really great at, like, talking to people. They weren't getting them results. So, like, we have a great relationship, and then if you've got this great relationship, it's harder for the client to break that relationship because they like you. They're invested in you as the person, even though deep down inside they know you aren't getting me results. And those were the two things that I always saw. And it was in my mind, it just always made sense. Like, all right, I've got clients who I've had for 8 years, 9 years, and they're constantly getting results. They're always coming back and they're saying, hey, like, I know we did this last year and I did that, and now I want to change, and instead of doing the half, I want to do the full. I'm going to do a tri. I'm going to run a century, right? Or I want to do a bodybuilding show, you know? And they're constantly changing what they want to do. And the thing that I always thought was impressive and fun for me was that they would always come back with something that was, like, just a little bit different than what we did before. And what that told me was that, one, they trusted and believed in what I was doing. Two, they knew that I could help get them there. And it was like, hey, we accomplished this goal. Oh, great. Okay, now what's the next one? Something way the hell off over there, but I know you can help me do that. And then we would just keep doing that. And the other thing that I thought was amazing is that when you have something that is good, people share that. They just instinctively want their friends and family to participate in that. If you go to a great restaurant that has amazing food, you're going to tell people about that. Hey, no, you guys got to go to, you know, it's just how it is. I did this. I liked that. This was great for me. You got to try it. And that is a very natural thing, right? And what I found was that now not only was I training, like, you know, this person, but I was training their brother or their best friend or their spouse or their sibling or, you know, somebody else that was in their circle of friends. And then what I realized over time was that there really never has to be a hustle if you are good at what you do. And that was the stuff that I felt like, taking years and years of observation and exploration and lots of failures on my own part, if I could share those core components with other coaches who are around me, then we collectively can really make a huge difference.
And we can all run, but everybody has to be strong on their own to all run together that way. Because if not, you have to turn into managing
people. And that's, I think, the thing that I've learned, you know, when you talk about 1 year, 2 year, 3 year types of things, you know, for probably 5 or 6 years, one of my bigger roles in another company was to manage people. And what I found in that course of action was that, you know, again, we talk about if the company's not invested in the employee, then the employee is not invested in growing the company. And that's what I saw, was that the company I worked for, they were not invested in their coaches. And when it came down to it, they weren't even invested in their clients, the people that were paying them. They were just in it for the money grab. And that bothered me. And what I tried to figure out was, how can I help these coaches, even if this is a short-term thing, help them grow and be better for the window that they're here, and tell them that, hey, I know this is not forever for you, right? But let's make this as best as it can be while you're here.
Yeah.
And what I found was that in that group of people who I was able to invest my personal time and energy in, they became invested in me. They didn't give a shit about the company, but they came and became invested in me. And then that's what drove their success, and then in turn drove my success, and led us to being one of the best teams overall in the country. So that was a really important thing for me, and a learning tool into what I needed to do to make things better for myself.
So you're like, I can take this and own it. If I can make this work inside of a place,
somebody else's business, you got it. Then I can do this.
That's been this summer this fall. We had, I'm thinking of semesters with interns. This fall, spring.
I don't know.
Whatever.
What are you going to say?
Sometimes, yeah.
This spring, we had all of the interns who started in the spring. We looked at everybody when they started, and this was authentically true. And young producer Michael is part of this. But we looked at all of them and said, this isn't like a normal internship where at the end of this, there's like something waiting for you here afterwards. This is just about you growing and getting experiences like you want to have, and helping the client. We work with small businesses, so they're going to be pumped. They're happy to have all kinds of help. And Allie, did anybody ever invest in you?
The reason why I laughed was because I think people invested in me in a different way. So the way you were talking, no. Everywhere I worked, no. But I grew up with people financially investing in me, in buying me my art products, buying paintings from me, obscure family friends hiring me to paint their home, like a picture of their home for like $500 when I was like 13 or 14. So I think it's a completely different way. I learned at a really young age, like, I can make something that someone's going to buy, and I can make like a lot of money doing it. And that's one of the things I don't struggle with now, is like negotiating or like quoting or like making money. I see a lot of artists having a hard time just feeling that like, oh, I don't want to charge someone for this.
Yeah.
And I've never struggled with that. But I never really had like a work situation. My coworkers at my job before I started working for myself were great. But there was just so much limited in what people could offer, even in that they had a lot of kids at home, or a lot of people at my job just wanted to retire, so I think like they weren't present, which is what you were talking about.
Yeah. I think, you probably didn't have any work. Yeah, you had no work environments where people were trying to get better, where everybody was like,
everyone was
let's
pretty
crush,
stagnant.
let's be amazing,
Yeah.
let's like do our best.
Yeah. But growing up, I had just a lot of people who were like, your stuff's good enough for me to buy as an adult. And I think that it makes me at this moment be like, I need to start doing that with younger people.
So it's interesting that you bring that up, because I think something that very similar, I learned at an early age, not that I could like make or create something that people would buy, but that was that the ability to make money was infinite. And what I observed at an early age was that you could literally turn anything into money. Like, I was always intrigued by like homeless people going around and picking up trash and cans and bottles, and then learning that they could take that and turn that into money. And it was like, okay. And then you start getting a little bit older and you're seeing different things, and the skill of even something as simple as cutting grass, when I was like 11 years old, and then turning that into a job and learning, if I do this number of yards and it takes me this long, I can get this many done, so now I can project out to the end of the summer. And like, you start figuring out how money works. And I remember the first time I quit a job, I quit without like a thought or a fear. And you're talking like 15 years old, you know what I mean?
Right.
But a lot of people that I know were like, oh my God, like, you can't just quit. Like, you got to put in 2 weeks. You got to do this. Like, what are you going to do? And it's just like, no, like, this is ridiculous. I don't like this. This is not fulfilling me. Drop the F-bomb. I'm out of here. You know what I mean? And doing that, knowing like, all right, I could find something else, literally anything else, and I could still make money doing that. And I think it was maybe like my freshman or sophomore year in high school was the first year that I worked at the fair in the summer. And it was like, you know, I'd spent all of the summer one year working like 10 hours a day, like doing all this stuff. And then the fair came along and it was like 12 days long. And I literally just worked ridiculously hard every day at a Gesser stand.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I rode my bike all the way over to the fairgrounds at the beginning of the fair, and I was like, you know what, I'm just going to see if I can find something. And you know the Gesser stands where they guess your age, weight, and your birthday month, right? Like there's really no legitimacy to that shit at all. But the guy that I luckily came upon was like this cool breeze, like he had like blonde hair, super tan from Florida, just a super smooth talker. And he was like, yo, what's up, little dude? Like, all right, man, here's the deal, bro. I'm going to pay you this if you stay here and just make sure my stand looks ridiculous. Yeah. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, all these fucking blow-ups and the cushy toys and all this. You just got to keep it looking fat. And I was like,
okay.
All right, cool. So, like, every day I would just sit behind this stand. It was like a little tent, you know, and I'd be blowing up balloons and fucking stuffing shit, making sure it's full. But I would always hear him out in the front, like, his ability to engage with people.
Yeah.
And, like, normally guessers are, like, kind of shitty. Yeah. You know what I mean? But this dude was, like, money at talking to people. He'd be like, hey, what's up, cutie? How are you? And he's, like, talking to this 98-year-old lady. Yeah. He's like, come here, baby. Hey, give me some love. And he's, like, start dancing with her randomly. And people would see stuff like that, and they love that. Yeah. Oh, and for me, that was a huge learning opportunity because he had zero fear, first of all, and he was able to get into like understanding people and reading them, and he could create rapport quick, right? And what ended up happening is like halfway through the summer, he would give me the microphone, and he'd be like, yo, little dude, all right, everything looks sick up here. It's like break time. I'm going to go grab some food. Here's the microphone. Let me see what you got. And then he would like leave, go get food, and then come back, but sit on the other side and watch me from a distance while he would eat. Yeah. And like, I'm like, hey, you know, just completely botching it. Yeah. But he would come back and he'd give me feedback, and he's like, you know, stand up, like talk about this. So I think it's interesting you talk about people investing in you, but not monetarily. Yeah. Like, I did a lot of work for him, but what I learned from that was something that I probably have carried with me, not knowing, my entire life. Oh, for sure. So I would say that, you know, you talk about a traditional job, there was never really an investment from that perspective. But individuals investing time and energy into developing me in some way was absolutely there.
Yeah, and letting you sort of rise to that occasion.
Correct.
Knowing that you're not going to be like him. Like, right off the bat, you're not going to be like him.
You're going to do a bad job. Like, it's your, whatever, the first time you do anything, you're going to do a bad job.
You're going to suck. Yeah. But see, that was the first time, even coming out of school, which I think is a huge problem in the school system, is that it was like, or what I would say is it was not like, do this and fail and you're done. Yeah. It was like, you're going to suck. Yeah. Like, get ready for that. Sure. You know what I mean?
I'm going to sit over here and watch.
It's exactly. I'm going to watch you bomb. Yeah. But when it's all over, I'm going to come back, talk to you, and we'll figure it out.
And you'll be fine.
And you'll be fine. Yeah. And I think, to me, it was like between those two things. And like the whole purpose of that statement was that, like, in that 12 days, I made more money in that short window of time than I did all summer. Jeez. And it was like, holy shit. Now that was a huge epiphany that like, all right, I literally don't have to kill myself every day like I watch my mom do, or I watch my family or my friends' parents do. Like, if you can do something really well and you find the right market, like, you're going to make a living doing that. Yeah, you can do well. And I think those couple of years for me were really impactful in understanding, you know, not only that money is infinite, but you know, understanding people and communicating with people, and that failure is success. You know what I mean? If you're afraid of failure, you're screwed. Yeah.
Well, right after I quit my mostly full-time job to work for myself, I had a guy who starts a lot of startups, basically, I don't even know if he's still here in town. He met with me. He was the first person to be like, I can't understand what that says in your portfolio, so why is it in your portfolio? And I was like, I remember I met with him at a Starbucks, like, I don't know. No one had ever given me feedback like that before. And then 2 months later, he was like, I'm going to pay you $2,000 to do this logo. And I remember thinking, like, I don't think I'm good enough, and that's way too much money. But I remember going home and being like, this changed my life because now someone said that was worth $2,000 to them.
Yeah.
And he was the smartest person
that I knew.
Right,
yeah.
you knew at that
yeah.
time.
And I remember
absolutely.
thinking, like, the combination of critique but investment was so foreign to me. Like, it's one thing for someone to think, oh, I'll pay you this much. I'll pay you $2,000 for a logo, but I have no idea if you're good. I'm going into this blindly. But for someone to
and
say,
to start
like,
it off with, like, I don't know what this is. Like, here's a problem, and I would like to pay you.
Yeah, it was very, like, I still think about that. Like, I can equally say, like, that isn't very good. Let's improve it. But then I'm going to give you, like, another great opportunity, or I'm going to pay you for this.
Yeah, of course.
That's the biggest, I think that's with interns, or I even think of not even interns, but other people who own businesses. It's terrified to do a thing and have nothing happen. And I think when we first did,
for sure.
I mean, I can't think of how many workshops we did at the beginning of doing workshops where it was like 3 people come and one of those people paid 25% of the ticket, but no one knows that no one paid full price. Yeah. But it's like hours and hours and hours of worth nothing, and it just took a ton of time. And we did some very bad workshops where at the end I was like, oh man, we should plan more.
Yeah, or like we should reimburse everyone.
Yeah. Or so you just learn. You learn all that. I guess that's also not something that everybody's walking around their Instagram profile like, hey, I just had a workshop that I came to. Right. You know.
Yeah, that's the thing though, that like it's funny because like we, even with the business, like the gym, like we bombed a bunch of times. Yeah. You know what I mean? And like that feeling of bombing, it sucks. You know what I mean? You're like, damn it, am I doing the right thing? Like, should I do this?
Yeah.
But for people who bomb, see other people bomb, it's like, way to go, man. Like, yo, because if you take that as critique, like, I need to do something different if this is going to work, then you come back at it and you keep trying different derivatives or different iterations of that until you find some traction. And it's like, that is a positive thing that, you know, somebody who doesn't know any better or doesn't have the right mindset is going to go, you suck. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's like, no. Yeah. I'm doing better than you. You don't understand that.
You haven't failed.
Yeah.
You should.
Absolutely. You're afraid, and that is your Achilles heel.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you really don't, like, in those moments before I think you go into, like, if this is kind of talking even about the first 2 years, I think that there's so much excitement and momentum that, I don't know, I feel like in a way you and I, Adam, have to sometimes sit down and actually think about, like, oh my gosh, remember that time we did that thing and it totally bombed, like it totally failed. Like, you feel this, it's amazing how much you forget, and we like constantly like to remember how, like, remember that thing flooded and you just had to like not work that day. And
I think what's interesting when you think about that is that when you get into a pattern and you start to find the thing that you do well and that like your audience is responsive to, it's even more interesting to forget what it feels like to bomb. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's, I think, is something that it's like, all right, if I haven't bombed in a while, like, I need to try something different.
I'm like playing it safe.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah. And I think that's something that I have learned over the years from listening to other people who are more experienced or more intelligent than me say the same thing, you know? And I think there are different types of people, but the type of businesses that want to grow or the types of people who want to get better, they always hold on to the feeling of bombing because it is the thing that drives them, motivates them to be better. Yeah. As opposed to holding on to the feeling of success because then you're fearful that you will lose it and you do anything that you can to maintain that. Yeah. And I think for me, that's always the difference maker is that like, I've been at the bottom before. I know what that feels like, and I'm okay with that if I have to, because when I come back and do it again, it's going to be better. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Allie just sat across from me one evening. She was working on logos, and she was like, you did like the safest version of logos I had seen you do in a long time.
Yeah.
Where I was like, yeah, everyone in the world will say that's fine. Like, and you were like, is this good? And I go, do you think it's good? And you go, no.
Yeah.
And it was, and then you stayed up, you kept working on it forever. And, and I think it's like riding that edge of, like, we always joke, and you probably see this too, where we joke with creative, ambitious people, as soon as you get comfortable in a playground that's new and foreign and you don't know how big it is or where the edges are, and then all of a sudden you get comfortable in it, that like the thing in your brain that makes you screw around outside of the playground, you do that again. And you just keep moving into more spaces where you're just constantly uncomfortable, which is great to grow. It's horrible. We work with a business coach, and I'm always like, as soon as we're going to get a repeatable pattern of profitability down to a science, like we will grow very bored and go do something else. Yeah.
So, yeah.
And so,
well, I feel that right now. I'm doing my 100-day project, which I did last year. Last year I painted 100 paintings in 100 days. This year I'm doing something different. And I noticed I'm at day 50 today. And last year at the exact same halfway point, I was like putting out work that I hated. But in this challenge, you have to do it every day. Yeah. And you have to be very public with like, you guys know this isn't as good as the thing I did on day 4. And it really makes you not really give a shit. Like, I'm just making something. And I think that's true of professionally or for personal projects where I have to continue making things, and there's going to be obvious times where it kind of doesn't hit the mark. Yeah. It misses the mark. And feeling comfortable even in that failure is kind of a good feeling. Like, it's uncomfortable, but you're also like, well, tomorrow I'm going to try something else.
And I think doing that, I mean, as far as doing, well, all of us are involved in client work and making sure clients are happy and successful and doing well. And experimenting kind of on your own time or in your own photo challenge or something like that, so that you don't have to take that out on a client project and kind of get into this space.
For sure.
I know at Peak, because Allie's brother works at Peak for you, works for himself at Peak with
works
you.
With
right?
me.
Yeah, right. I know most people wouldn't correct that, but I was like, Alex is sitting there right now.
I was
that's
just
not how
I was gonna say it.
That's not how we talk about that, but
well, actually, can you talk about it? Because I think this is about how people start a business. Like, people are going to listen to this if they want to start.
So you can talk about that. The question I was going to ask was how there's been times where you've experimented, because I know he's shared stories with us of you guys are trying a thing and you invest like time, money, energy in letting him take an idea
and run with
maybe even like away from, hey, I know like this is the thing we all get paid for and make the most money on, but we're going to let you take a half-court shot over here.
Yeah.
Like, how do you balance all of that? Or how do you, I guess you can start with Allie's question of how do you think through, how does the team work together at Peak, and how do you approach that? But then how do you handle letting people experiment and maybe make a mistake or maybe screw up or maybe get out of bounds?
So you familiar with 3M, the company?
Yes.
Yeah, so they're like just...
like the hanging thing?
So they're most notably known for like chemicals.
Got it.
And adhesives and things along those lines. Like they're the ones that came up with like Post-it. And
got it.
So whenever you see something like adhesive-wise, you'll see the backing is like 3M.
Got it.
You peel off,
Yeah.
Their whole company initiative was to like not to, like you said, create something and then be able to just make a bunch of money off of it. They just wanted to keep figuring out ways to invest in their people and build something new and create something new. And then once it got to a point where it was sustainable, they'd sell it off and they'd start on something else. And they're constantly trying to overcome problems. And for me as a creative, whether it was playing music or anything else, you know what I mean, editing something, it was like, all right, I've got this song in my head. It's like, I don't give a shit about anything else that's going on right now. I will stay up like you all night long, writing out the lyrics, rewriting, figuring out what the hook is. And like, I would just keep doing that until it was done. And there's like this window of opportunity where you've got all of the energy in the world to accomplish that.
Yeah.
And what I felt like for myself in thinking about 3M as inspiration is that if somebody is going to come to me and say like, hey, I think X, Y, and Z, if we can try this, like I would be willing to head this off. And in my eyes, it's like, okay, let's sit down, let's talk about this, let's run the numbers, let's look at what the possibilities are, let's look at what we'll learn from this. All right, do you feel like this is worth it now? Do I feel like it's worth it now? And between the two of us, we're going to make an educated decision.
Yeah.
Is it the time, is it the money, or is it the education piece that we're investing in this, and what's going to be the main benefit? And sometimes we'll make money from it.
Right.
Sometimes it's going to be a great thing to learn from, and sometimes it's just like, all right, we did that. Now we've got an idea, you know. But I'm always trying to weigh those things. Yeah. And if a coach says like, hey, I think this would work well, you know, someone has said this to me, or we want to try this, I'm like, all right, why not? All right, if you've got time and you want to put it in, and it doesn't negatively impact anything else that you're doing, go for it.
Yeah.
You know, because if it works, it's a win.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work, it's a win.
Yeah.
Because you learned something.
Yeah.
And that I've always felt that way. So giving them free reign to kind of run on those things is important, as long as when we sit down, like we all understand these are the parameters, this is the time frame, this is what I'm willing to invest financially, this is what, you know, and this is what we're looking for. And if it works out, boom, let's get it.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's been good, because it not only keeps people engaged in what the 80% of what they do regularly,
For sure.
but the 20% now is like the fuel. It's the motivation. It's that thing that keeps you up all night working on something.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big deal.
I like that, even in the fact that, so if I'm relating it back to what we do, it's taking away the expectation that the day-to-day tasks aren't always that thing that gets you so excited. And that's a reality. Like,
That's real. Yeah.
There's times where I'm like, I don't want to be doing this right now, but I am. But I have to make sure there's the other 20% that's like, that's what I'm excited about.
Yeah.
And so your life isn't going to be this 100%. This is always amazing. I get to do
that was a
everything
big
I wanna
shift we
do.
even made, you know, in the first 2 years. It was a lot about creativity, like how do we let ourselves do what we feel like doing, and then realizing like that runs out at some time. Like at some point, you don't build businesses around just like, let me do whatever I feel like doing. But understanding, especially when we started to have a team around, we noticed the first people we started bringing higher, like it's not that fulfilling, sustainable life to just let Adam and Allie do whatever they feel like doing every day.
Yeah.
Like that's not a fun mission to be on every day. But if we can turn that for ourselves and for the whole team to think through, hey, how do we do really fun stuff together? How do we make a bunch of dope shit? And then how do we help all these small businesses that when you meet them, you're like, I don't care. You know, we had people, you know, I can't think of how many, we have like silent, producer Michael is like a character on this episode, but he's not talking. But Michael worked for, I can't tell you how many graphics he designed for one of our clients, because you get to meet her, you fall in love with her, you're like, oh, helping you is a blast.
Yeah.
And creating the same graphic 150 different times, 400 different times, or whatever it was, like that's not what someone wakes up in the morning
Right.
to do. But if we can make Bethany's life a little simpler and easier, that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
And see, something I think is interesting is that I always think about, you talk about investing in your team, or the people that surround you, but for you, thinking of that particular example, that is an expression of your investment in that client, because it's not just, all right, well, these are the number of billable hours and we've done this many times, so I'm going to have to charge you more. You're investing in making sure that client is satisfied and happy with that product. And when you take the time to do that, that's what's going to give people that wow factor and make them want to share you with other
what you
people.
even were mentioning.
Which is what I was saying earlier. And it's like, as much as you spend time investing in your team, if you do that with your team, then your team is willing to invest in the client.
Yeah, that's very true.
And they become an extension of you, you know? And if you do that, the client is always going to be happy. And that's going to be the thing. You never know, you know, as many times as you did that, right? She may someday say like, oh, well, but I know this one person and you've got to hire him or you got to bring him in for this project. Or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that to me is something that I have learned tenfold, is that even though I may not be getting financially paid for this thing that I'm doing right now, the investment is going to come back like 4 and 5 times down the road.
Yeah.
And you have no idea when it's going to come. And I think being okay with this being a long-term thing is the thing that makes it okay.
Yeah.
It's successful because you're in it for the long haul instead of for the quick hit.
Yeah.
And that's so different in your world of training and fitness. No one's like that. Rarely, at least the people who are famous are not like that.
Yeah.
And in our world, nobody's sitting around being like, we've had clients who've chosen other partners to do, like, oh, my nephew does websites, so he's going to do it for us. And I was like, we'll be here when he's doing
done
something else.
Yeah.
You know, and you can come back and we'll redo it in 3 years. That's fine.
It's
But
also,
treating things like we have a long investment.
Yeah.
Or we have a long time to
Yeah,
build
it's
those
a relationship.
relationships.
Yeah.
It's absolutely a relationship.
Yeah, I think for me it feels a lot more like I just said to a client, I'm not making this because I would consider myself an artist, but I'm not doing this because I want to be a famous artist. I'm doing this because I want you to love it and to use it. So when you give me feedback, this is like also yours. This isn't just my thing that you're throwing critique at. And I think I see that lacking in a lot of freelancers. So if someone's listening to this thinking like, oh, I want to do this full time, I've had to get out of the way and think to myself, this business owner is like inviting me into their passion in their life. Like this is the thing that they do every day.
That's the first, when new people come on the team and they get their first feedback round from a client.
It's hard.
It is like every time, even the feedback is great. Like, oh my gosh, I love this. Let's just like tweak or whatever, just little stuff. It's always a thing where they're like, oh, I don't like this like I did an hour ago anymore. And we're like, oh no, this is how this is. Like this is
This is the process.
We show up and we share something and then it changes, and then after it changes, that's what we made.
Yeah.
And so whatever you make is you have to do that together.
And we can stand up for ourselves and bring our expertise to the table, but if they like that color and there's nothing wrong with that color, let them love that color.
Yeah,
you know?
because it's their choice. And so like something that I know that my industry or my profession is like with this, but I've always been infatuated with businesses. And because of what I've done, I've had maybe more than most the opportunity to become really close with a lot of like high up or independent business owners or contractors. In the dialogue, let's say even over the last 10 years with people like that, has just been so helpful in learning from their mistakes or watching them do things. And when you have the opportunity to work with a client, and a client they are bringing you into their fold to do something or to help them with a problem, like that's kind of an honor.
Yeah.
You know, because when I think about what, my business means to me, it's very important to me. And when someone is going out as an extension of me, like I want that to be a good extension.
Yeah.
And, even in the design component or the website component, it's like they're going to sit down and they're going to tell you their history, and they're going to tell you their story and their rationale and their reasoning and their why. And your job is to take all of that and then figure out a creative way to present that to the world that they are confident in.
Yeah.
That
they can own.
Yeah, that they can own, and it's like that you're the storyteller in some way, shape, or form. Your job is to overcome the obstacles or the trials and tribulations that they have faced and figure out how to create this end product for them.
Yep.
And
even now we're so much brought in, like a lot of times they'll say, yeah, this is like what I wrote, but I'm actually trying to attract someone who isn't like, it doesn't have insider knowledge. So how do you interpret this? And I think it's cool when it feels collaborative on the other side, where they're like, no, tell me what you think.
Yeah.
And that's like the biggest indicator is like, does someone treat you as a vendor or a partner or someone a part of their life or,
Oh my gosh. We just sat down with the yoga studio and I was like, okay, so our whole team was in here and they did an exercise with us, and we were like, at the end, she was like, you guys need to do a little bit more stretching. Like everybody as a team. I was like, yeah, it's almost like we sit and work on our computers all day. And then I was like, okay, so none of us are yoga people. All of us thought what we did today, like an introductory, easy thing was nice. Where do we go? Like, we've worked with yoga studios in the past. We pay attention to that world online. We're friends with that world. I don't know where to send. If someone on my team was like, I should start somewhere, but I don't even know what to do, I'd be like, go watch YouTube videos because I don't know a place to go send you. And so we're sitting talking to yoga studios being like, how can you break down that communication and talk to people
To someone new.
kind of where they are? And it's so freaking hard.
For anyone. It's hard for anyone to think about when we work with a lawyer who works in liquor law. Like, okay, this person has a passion for starting a restaurant. They don't know the law. They don't know what to do. So, like, to be willing to relinquish some of that insider knowledge and say, like, let's bring it down a notch. Let's, like, speak to my audience. I think that's what's...
Get out of your own
what's
head
awesome.
a little bit. For sure. What has been, so you mentioned working with a lot of business owners or people who have been successful ended up working with you. Allie, you would be in the same spot, right? So what have you noticed the difference between, I would just say, successful and unsuccessful people? Successful can mean whatever, who cares? But what's the difference between, because you also probably train a lot of people who come in and see you, but then don't follow up and do whatever thing they want to do. You work with we sit down and talk to a lot of people who want to grow their business, but don't end up doing that ever. What's the difference between the person who starts and gets somewhere in a year or two, or the person who doesn't?
So when you talk about clients, I can typically tell probably within the first 60 to 120 minutes, that's an hour or two, within the first two sessions, I can tell whether or not they're going to be successful with it. Yeah, because it's the language that they use. It's the way that they view themselves. It's the way that they, try to understand, Like, if somebody just shows up, like, let's say we're doing a session, they just show up and they're not here. Mentally, they're not here. And they're just like, okay, you tell me what to do. It's like, all right, well, I'm not going to be here forever to tell you what the fuck to do. So you need to figure this shit out. And my job is to be kind of like the captain of this ship and show you how to steer it. Because eventually I'm going to jump the fuck off. And this is going to be your boat. And you need to take this bitch to the harbor, you know? And...
T-shirt. Take this bitch to the harbor. This is your boat. We're all about t-shirts. We're like just gonna,
t-shirts. Yeah,
we're changing. We're shutting down the business, just doing t-shirts. From
I love it. Let's do it.
So it's someone who's very much like too much leaning on you.
But like I want to get like thanks for sitting. I mean, I remember sitting down with you and my knees like broke. Alex is the best wizard in the world to talk to.
I like how you look at the microphone like you're looking at the person listening.
Microphone.
Yeah. Heart.
I have friends who like complain to me about their joints all the time. I'm like, send Alex a very long, thorough email explaining everything that's going on.
Yep.
And then if you don't do that, you don't care about yourself.
Right.
And so I remember sitting down with you being like, my knees hurt for the first time in my life. I didn't know why. It was like nothing made sense to me. And also you fixed my tennis elbow. Sweet. I'm very thankful for that. But I remember sitting there and being like, okay, so like, what do I do when I go to the gym? When do I stretch? And I wrote down, I still have I do that same damn thing. I probably should update it from 2 years ago. But that same thing is everything I do, and I don't need to go visit you to fix my knees anymore.
Yeah.
But so that's the difference of someone who wants to show up is like, I want to pull this out of you for myself. Like, I'm going to take from you for me.
I think,
yeah, go ahead.
well, so, and like, I'll just kind of go off of that. Not the opposite. Mine is true in that if if I was a client, I'd be like, okay, yeah, help me. Oh, wait, but hold on. Let me take, but help me this. Okay, wait, let me take it back into they just can't focus. They can't relinquish, the lead. It's not even that, like, I still want them to be heavily involved. It's so much of, you are all over the place and you need to calm down, take a deep breath, focus.
Alignment, focus, yeah.
So I think it is definitely this, I can tell also. I can tell from the first email. I'm like, oh, well, we'll talk.
Yeah, that's the thing for me is like, I try to, like, you, in your email, you kind of said, like, what were obstacles or challenges?
Yeah, what'd you bump into you didn't know was coming?
Number one was educating clients, like teaching them, if you want success, this is the way that you need to go about it, right? It's not just show up and work out and like go on a diet and do all this other dumb shit, right? You need to focus on training. The idea that it is training versus working out is just like, workout is one off. I'm going to go work out. Okay, that's great. But if I'm training, that implies that you are working towards something. You're evaluating your progress. You're trying to make it better, and then you're trying to move forward. Yeah. And when someone comes to me and they don't know where they want to go, they're ambiguous about everything. They don't have any sense of, ownership in what we're doing. It's like, all right, well, did you do this? Have you tried that? How did this work? How did you feel? If you can't tell me those things, right, that's a problem, because now you're leaving me to guess, and me guessing isn't going to get you anywhere, right? And that's like, it's almost like what you were saying. It's like that person is like, oh, well, here's this.
Take it back.
They don't know themselves. They don't know what they want. They're just showing up, and they're trying to, well, this is what I think I'm supposed to do.
Yeah. Someone told me I should. Yeah. When someone says, someone told me I should talk to you, I think to myself, well, what do you think?
Exactly.
Do you want a new website? Do you think you're fine? You're probably fine, or you're not. I think if I were to if I were then to piece apart what makes our most successful clients successful, I think it's leading when they need to lead, and then letting someone else bring that critique to the table and go talk to that financial consultant, because you need to know how much per unit you're spending on your product.
It's the same thing. We need to write this as like, we need to workshop this.
We need to record this.
We should record this. Write this down. No, but it's the training aspect, because we talk so much about that. One of the hardest things in our work is we want people to be very involved. We like pull them into this thing where it's like about them, which feels good. And then when we're done, they need to get back to work.
Yeah.
And our clients who are the most successful are the people who are like, scream, cry, excited, thank you so much, this is the best, this changed my life, all of this is amazing, and now I'm going to be real busy. And we joke sometimes, like, true. When clients want to come back a month later and be like, oh, I was thinking about reworking the website, we're like, what? How do you even have time? You shouldn't have time for that.
Yeah.
You spent all that time, and now you need a thing to train for. You need like a focus somewhere outside of this gym of what you're supposed to be doing. And I think that's we joke sometimes, we need to send clients, like when they're done, we need to send them like a gift. It's like, thank you for being a past client, you're no longer a client, you now have work to go do, you have important things in front of you. If you want to rework your website again in the next 12 months, let me remind you that these other things are more important to you than doing that. And I think it's we need to figure out a good training metaphor for that.
Yeah. Well, I related, Alex, what you said about this feeling of presence, being present and focused. That, I think, from the beginning is something that we strive for, while also struggling with getting distracted with social media and getting distracted with emails. But this feeling of, no, we're going to be really present with you. And it's actually really difficult for us to work with someone who isn't. We've had clients like 3 to 4 years ago who are like, you're like on your phone while I'm talking to you, and you're not going to understand what I'm saying. Like all of that is it makes the whole relationship feel like you shouldn't even be investing in this right now. And there have been times where it's like, I don't know if you can, with your workload or with your home life or with personal issues, focus on it. And I'm advising you not to spend the money. Come back in 12 weeks when you feel like you have a better grasp on that. And so I think in general that
one of our best ever like firing a client was, we were literally afraid that there wouldn't be present enough to understand what had happened. They'd be like, okay, cool, I'll like send you some stuff tomorrow.
You're like, you weren't listening.
No, this is done.
I just fired you. Yeah. But yeah, I think that for me is huge. But yeah.
Difficult. Anything else? First 2 years you bump into difficulties, struggle? I didn't expect this.
Doing too much.
Really?
Yeah, I think, because, as we talk about this, the time that we were starting Peak, and like buying it, was the time that I was also contemplating like driving my own brand. And
that was
that's how we start. Yeah.
yeah,
Oh
it was the concept of driving this my own brand, and both of those two things were happening at the same time, and it was really challenging because you're still trying to figure out this one piece, but then you want to do this, and then are they the same? But no, they're different. And I know we had talked about that a couple times, and that was a huge battle for me. And then finally, it was like, all right, which one of these deserves the most amount of attention? And for me, it was like, I have to focus on this. This is what I have to put my time
Not your
energy
personal
into.
brand.
Not my personal brand. And
Oh man, that's like
that was
so real.
Yeah.
yeah, it was, and that I have watched other people battle that, and I've read about it and I've listened to it. It was the hardest decision I had to make at that time, but when I weighed the pros and the cons and I evaluated what the long-term potential was, I will always be able to build my own brand, but I will not always be able to build my business the first time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And for me, it was like, all right.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit, like, you know, you had mentioned like the 100 days thing.
Yeah.
And there are still things for myself that, like, I battle with. Because my question is, what's the most important thing right now? And something as simple as like blog posts, like I will write, but then it's like, I don't want to put it out.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, what I tell myself all the time is, like, it doesn't fucking matter. Like, all right, just put it out there.
Yeah.
But then there's always this like, like I'm judging myself,
Yeah.
and like, all right, is this going to be a poor reflection on the business? Like, am I allowed to say what I really want to say, or is this going to conflict with something? You know, and there's all these other things. And then what ends up happening is it's just like, all right, you write this, and then it's like, all right, let me just sidebar that for a little while, you know? And I think that was the big thing for me is I needed to make the decision, am I going to do the business or am I going to do the brand?
Yeah.
And then once I cut the brand part out of it, the business was like, boom.
Sped
it just
up,
went,
yeah.
it went so fast.
For sure.
Allie and I both exited other things we were part-time involved in. And it was, and they were both really good things, like really great things that in a different world would have been the best opportunities we had in our life.
Yeah.
But that's not the world we're in.
Yeah.
Last night we're sitting, the coffee stuff is grows, and I was like, it needs more time from me, and I'm sitting there with Allie like I'm having that moment of like fork in the road.
Do I split my attention?
Do I want to split? And I do, and I like both of them, but which one? I mean, you can look through like some math things to figure out which one's more lucrative pretty easily, but I think there's this, it's like that combo of always prioritizing, but then also understanding I need to do like a weird opportunity. And
Or
then
like
knowing that those things will swell and you're going to have to choose to not take them as far as they could go.
I think also like Adam and I, we both talked about like, what is the itch you're trying to scratch, and can you do that in the thing that you're doing full time?
Yeah.
So like last year, me painting brought in no new clients because nobody needs a painting. I mean, I sold a lot, but this year my challenge is completely based around photography. People want that. And so like, what do I want to do? Is this a good idea to loop into my business, or do I need to like silently blog post? And I don't have to share my thoughts, but I'm still thinking and working through stuff. So it's like, I think it's for you. It was me saying, you need to get louder in the Wonder Jam, and you need to be like more vocal, and your voice needs to be present more. And we'll see, maybe that scratches that itch. I don't use that metaphor a lot, and I just used it twice.
It's powerful.
Thanks.
The other thing you talked about doing too much. You work with your wife.
Correct.
A lot at Peak, and she pulls you into like, I see you modeling for some things, right? So like a lot of time together.
Or photography or anything else.
Yeah.
A bunch of things. You guys, you also like the people you work with, and they become friends, close relationships. How do you balance all of that? Because Peak becomes the Peak family takes up 100% of your time, roughly, right? Between it's at home, we have that same thing, where Alan and I have that same thing, where I really like the people I work with. Also, I live with one of the people that I work with, and we do, so it's all of that. How do you balance all of that? Was that different at the beginning than it is now?
Does it feel fluid? Does it feel...
Yeah, I think so. I think that, again, having the pleasure to learn indirectly from like other people who have experienced similar things. I think first and foremost, the idea that if you work with your spouse, that there needs to be this line in the sand between what is work and what is home, I think is kind of bullshit.
Yeah.
It's just not real. Because this is our life, this is what we do. Every aspect of it is going to impact or affect us in some way. And there is no right or wrong time to talk about it or to work through a problem, and I think, I like to read, and there's this book called Made in America, which is like the Sam Walton story.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the things in that book that I thought was amazing was that, at the dinner table, he would sit down and he would talk about the dealings of the day with his entire family. And when they would go on like family vacations, he would stop into other stores and like see what they were doing and walk through and see how they displayed things. And he'd bring his kids with him. And like it became a family thing, so much to the degree where like at the dinner table, his kids would ask about the debt or the loans or, well, how much is this making? Because it was interesting to them. It was the family conversation.
Yeah.
And that was the thing that drove that, so much so that when he departed, he left all of that to his 4 kids, and they're like in the top 100 richest people in the world.
Yeah.
There's something to be said about immersing your family in what the family business is.
Yeah.
And because we work that way and we do all of these different things, and we've got a variety of hats that all seem to fit, pleasantly under one fold, I don't think that there is this idea of balance. I think that, in the book that I'm reading now, it talks about balance is a lie in your life, because the reality of the situation is balance means that everything is even. But if everything is even, then you're not able to give everything you have to push one thing to make it exceptional. And the moment you decide that this thing is important to you is the moment that you become imbalanced, because you are willing to commit more to that than to everything else. That in its own right is being imbalanced. And when we talk about, the history of the work-life balance, that is not a real thing. It was something that it was a term that was created, when women were going to work and they're asking, well, how are you as a female who's supposed to be responsible, in the 50s, 60s, 70s for the home? How are you going to balance life at the family and work?
Because they're different in my mind.
And like the idea, the concept of the work-life balance has been bastardized over the years. So to understand the history of that and to realize the context is not exactly the way it's presented, it basically means to me that like, I don't think that I need to do anything differently. Like we talk at dinner about what's going on at work. At work, we talk about what's going on at home, and it's this beautiful blend. And, one of the guys that I was able to work with for a long time, was the director of breast cancer research at the James at Ohio State for like 8-9 years. And they hired a really expensive business coach to like work with all of their top people. So he would like come in and we'd talk about like what they covered, and that was awesome because he came in one day and he just gave me this piece of paper and he was like, I read this and I thought about you. And the whole premise of it was basically, the day that there is no line between what you love and what you do to create your life, the day that those two things, there's no line between the middle, will be the best day of your life. Because everything that you do is like the idea that, if I love what I do, then I never work a day in my life. It's that concept, and it's like, that's it. I'm in it with people that I like, people that I trust, people that trust me, and we keep pushing, and we make mistakes, and we fight, and we argue, and we put things back together, and we keep pushing and growing. Yeah. And it's like, to me, there is no line to blur, you know, it is what it is. And sometimes it's going to be from, you know, quote unquote, unbalanced, and other times it's going to be balanced. And, you know, I try to tell everybody, like, look, there are periods in time when you have the ability to relax and the luxury to kind of chill out and do whatever the fuck you want to do. And then there are periods in time when you got to put your head down and you got to fucking go. And you go, and then you stop, and you pick your head up, and you look around, and then you relax.
And then there's weeks where you relax one day, work one day, you know, like it's totally, I relate. We spoke at CCAD once, and a student raised his hand, and he was like, so you two are married, like, how do you balance that? And we both
How do you
laughed.
turn it off? It was like, how do you turn it off when you get home?
And then he said balance, and we laughed. We were like, we don't. Like, there's times where we have to be intentional about me saying, I'm in my relaxed mode now. Can we talk about that tomorrow morning? And that's being in a relationship. That's like communicating. But I totally agree in that. To the point where when I meet people who are their life is very
isolated,
compartmentalized, I'm like fascinated. I'm just like, so you leave work and you don't think about it anymore, but you hate work, but you don't really like who you're dating, so you hang out with your friends, and then you have to go home and see your family. All of these sound horrible, you know, and it totally.
It's literally like your life is Friday night and Saturday. Like we had an event here Sunday, and there's a table when we were talking about it, and they're like, I was like Sundays are like so chill. And they're like, oh no, Sundays are the worst
because I have to
go meal prep for the week, and then I go run errands, and I do laundry,
and then I have to get
like,
ready for work,
get
and
ready
then
for work, and
Sunday scaries, and you're like, oh.
So they have like, in that model, you have Friday night and Saturday is your life. And then
it's fine,
maybe if you can tolerate alcohol, Thursday night also can be part of your life if you can be hungover at work, depending on what your job is. So you have like 2 nights in a day per week of what you want. Which is just...
It's just odd. It's a little odd to me. And when I find myself stressed, I have to actually tell myself, all right, first of all, you like what you do. You like the people that you're working with. You chose to have this life and to build it. What are you feeling rushed in? Who's causing anxiety in your life? Can you address it? Can you talk to that person? Can you remove it? And a lot of it is me just being mindful of that and then taking action. Like whether it's taking action and I'm grateful, so get over it. Why are you stressed out? But a lot of it is you're in control. Like this actually isn't bad.
No one made you do any of this.
Correct.
And we don't. Maybe if we had a boss that was like making us do something, we could maybe blame them. But we don't. We don't. So it's just all our fault.
But I think it's odd in another way. Like we have had my brother live with us 4 years ago, Adam's cousin who's in college, my sister who's in college is living with us right now, and I know it's different for them. They're like, wow, you kind of work a lot and you kind of stay late when you normally would go home. And I think that it's just a different context probably than what they've seen in their own parents or from people who are in their lives. And, you know. But
they don't teach you that in college.
No, not at all. And I think I think to me is like some people are like, they love the idea that they could leave work and be done with it. And to me is like, I love the idea that I can leave and do whatever I want to do, and I don't have to ask permission for that. You know what I mean? Like, I can stay, like, this is mine, I can control this. I don't like how this is, I can change it. You know what I mean? Like, to me, that is more important than feeling like I can, like, be done. You know?
What was that? That's like the bit, Chris McAllister talks about this all the time, where I forget, it's a quote attributed to somebody. He talks about on their deathbed, people regret spending time with people they love, but then also some version of living someone else's life, of living, I spent 60 years doing what I thought someone else wanted me to do, rather than living their own. And I think Allie and I's best conversations with each other have always come when we just discuss that tension with each other. Like, hey, I feel like I'm living your life, or I feel like I'm just doing whatever someone else needs.
Yeah.
And we just have that conversation in the middle of the whole dang thing. Yeah. And we spend most of the time with people we care about anyway, so we cover both of those like deathbed things.
Yeah.
For the two of you, how often do you have those conversations?
Which is like, what the
Quarterly?
real question is, how often does it build up enough to where we're having that conversation?
So you realize that it builds up over time,
and
then does it start with an implosion, or how do you recognize that it's getting to that point?
I think you just
my most recent was the most recent one was the coffee conversation. Like I have this coffee business. I'm at the stage right now where I'm about to invest a lot more time and money into it to take it to the next thing. And part of me, I was like wrestling with it. I'm like doing a bunch of mindfulness, thought process, decision making, brain things, and I'm saying all this to Allie. And I was like, hey, Allie, I'm about to talk to you for a while. This is like, you're a therapist right now. I don't need you to fix anything, and I actually don't want you to tell me what you think I should do. And I walked through all of it, and it came into, I actually really like, this is the only thing right now, because we're doing a lot of client work, our team at the Water Jam is growing. This coffee thing feels like this is just Adam's. Like, Art or Coffee by Adam Lehman, and that's just mine. I don't have to collaborate with anybody. I don't have to, like, I get to make all the decisions. And that is something I miss in the Wonder Jam. And so it was this thing, and I was realizing, I feel like part of me is living a life that is on someone else's terms. I don't even know what that is. So we talk about it and understand where can I bring more of that to the table? Where do we need to like maybe recenter, rebalance our roles and relationship at work and at home and other stuff to make sure that both those things are there. But it started with me being like, I'm about to click the button on a bunch of money to spend, and I feel weird about it.
Yeah.
So then we talk about why do I feel weird, and it was
I don't think it's like this huge blow up. It's more of like inaction. Like why am I not like doing this thing? Why am I not
what's
like
the hesitation?
Why am I like hesitating? And I felt that way when we both left the other businesses we started. It was like, I don't feel activated in this. I'm not doing the things that I love, and I'm going to be 100% in the Wonder Jam. And the other person being like, awesome. I'm like happy for you, you know? And it's having those relationships around where you can be like, that candor can exist.
Yeah.
Like that's huge. Where you can say like,
and where you're excited to go contribute. Like I want to show up and I'm excited to throw my hat in the ring and see what we can do.
So out of curiosity, in your relationship over time, is that something that you guys have kind of stumbled upon on your own, or is this something that you learned from someone else?
I think we're very much like you, where I think we want to help people we want everyone we work with to feel like themselves. I think even if we had a worse business, because everyone could feel like they were doing whatever they wanted to do or whatever they felt compelled to do, we would still make that choice. But I think we found that, just like you, when people are activated in their own thing, that's better for everybody anyways.
I would say for me, it's like I was motivated in that because I have in moments felt, if I feel off about something, I know that feeling immediately.
Yeah.
And I've known times where I don't feel safe to say it. And I think it's the idea of, I don't want anyone else to feel that way. If you feel like, I hate being here, or I am in a bad place, I have anxiety, I don't feel passionate about something that I do, I want someone to be able to say that and not feel like they're going to throw up. Like, I want it to be like a freeing moment for them.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's interesting that you talk about that, because like every year around my birthday, and even more towards like the end of the year, like the fiscal year, like that January, December time frame for me, I'm always very contemplative, but around those two particular times, the New Year and then my birthday, are always times when I really sit and reflect, and I set a new goal for myself, and I only allow myself to pick one thing. It has to be something that I can control, and it has to be something that is that's about me, changing maybe the way that I interact with people, or maybe it's about the way that I think. And one of the things that I had noticed was that there was a period in my life where I was doing very well with a lot of things, and I couldn't quite put my finger on why. Like, why was this working really well? Was it the environment? Was it the people? What was it about these different things that are in all sides of the page that were working well? And I couldn't figure it out. And then I realized that the thing about it was that I was following my instincts. And my instincts, my gut feeling, my gut reaction on the decision-making process was allowing me to make a decision quickly, decisively, and then act on it.
Yep.
And I was acting on it with a lot of passion and energy, and that's what was the driving force behind it. And then as I started to get better at something, the fear of acting on emotion or instinct was kind of throttled back, and I tried to be more logical and contemplative about things. And what I found is that my initial feeling about something, it was conflicting with what was rational or what seemed to be rational or logical.
Yep.
And I would pick the logical, and then I would find that my progress kind of slowed. And then it was falling off, and then the success was waning. So the decision that I made for myself was that I need to be more in touch with that irrational feeling, which is really just the desire to act on my gut instinct. And I took it upon myself to first learn more about that and start understanding what's referred to as the active subconscious. You know, it's what sits between the conscious and the subconscious, and it's constantly evolving and evaluating and measuring and weighing all of these things quickly, you know, that allow you to have that gut reaction. And then the next year goal was to allow myself to first feel that and recognize what it was, and then to allow myself to act on it. And that was a game changer in doing that, you know. And I think there's something to be said specifically about your gut instinct. You know, when you say like something is off and I know it, most people drown that out. You know, oh, that's not real. Oh, well, it's because of this. Or it doesn't make sense. Like, this is great. You should love this. You know, oh, this is such a wonderful job. Like, if I leave this, I'll never find anything like it again. You know? And
mine's like suffocating me. Like, I cannot ignore it. There's like, when I decided something once that was like, I was like, I'm doing that. And later that night, Adam was like, I can't sleep because I'm like going over the options for you. And I'm like, oh, I decided.
I'm
like,
done,
I am at peace. I feel awesome. Like, I think my gut has never proven me wrong. Like, it's always led me in the right way. And I resonate with that so much. So much that when we interviewed someone else before, they were like, what is a benefit and what has been a struggle in trusting your gut so much? And we talked about that. But I think that it's something that people should listen to.
You learn the intuition gets tight, and you realize where it's smart. And where it's like, what am I? It was me. I mean, it was last night. It was me being like, okay, cool, coffee. Okay, I feel weird, and so it was like, how can we get down to like a half second of a weird feeling, and being like, all right, let's break this down. What do I really want? What I really want is I want to make a difference, and what do I really like this? Coffee's great. I like sharing it. Super fun, and we can talk about all like the marketing language around that. But what's really going on is I like to have that's the place where I've been able to say I put my stamp on this. The Wonder Jam has been a thing where Allie did her own work for 2 years, and then I came and joined, and it's been Allie's first space, which is cool, and I'm pumped about that. But it was that thing of being like, hey, I need somewhere.
Something
has to go somewhere.
Outlet,
But it makes me think of what you said, Alex, in this weird, like, it all comes back to like what we were first talking about. When someone on your team who works with you says, I want to try this, you don't just say like, trust your gut. You do look at the numbers. And I think that's something that I've learned is like, I trust my gut and then I prove it. I can like find proof that this is the best thing. And so I think that is huge. Some people are just like, okay, cool, whatever you want, and let's give you no parameters or budget. There has to be also paired with some logical stuff.
And that helps our team learn. I mean, that helps, 2 days ago, Erica is sitting in here, and she's like, we just need more plants in here. I was like, get more plants. She's like, what do you
Make a plan.
What do you mean? I was like, oh, I forgot that we haven't taught you this. And so I was like, okay, so just like tell us how much you're going to spend, like have a general idea of a plan, and then you can just do that.
And in that way, she like now has a notebook and is taking notes on prices when we go out. Like when you give someone that like freedom,
yeah.
they're like not going to just like, well, sometimes they'll fail, but they're going to try to not.
And we did that a summer ago with interns. We asked them, we're like, hey, I want people to take more Instagram pictures
in our bathroom.
So,
in our bathroom.
No, that's not what.
That wasn't how it started.
That was their idea.
Oh, okay.
The point of it was, I was like, I just want more Instagram pictures in here. Whatever you think. Like now you go. And they were like, we need to make our bathroom dope. And we're like, I was like, okay, make a plan, whatever. And it turned out to be like a whole
pictures in our bathroom.
thing. Yeah. And it was them just being like, we're on Instagram a lot. We know what we're doing. And they also came, budget number 1 was like insane.
We're like,
and I was like, all right, so you can paint the walls, not get like, whatever.
Yeah. So. No, I think they were like, this really cool tile on the floor. And we're like, nah. Yeah. But we should do that. Yeah.
But it was, they were right.
Yeah, people will rise.
They didn't understand budgets. We had to help work on understanding budgets, but they were right.
Totally.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to ask, and so there's last 2 questions. One, did you stumble into anything just success-wise as you're getting started, you're starting peak, year 1, 2, anything you're like, oh my gosh, I did this right, and I didn't know that I was doing this right, or didn't know I was accidentally doing a great job of these things? And then the other thing I'll ask you, and maybe these are similar, but anything you invested in for yourself, your business, your team, spent money in, spent energy on, spent whatever, that made a huge difference that you would say, if you're starting something, pay attention to this. So any of those 2, either of those 2 questions or both of them?
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard because like I feel like I would say that the big thing that was a happy accident was this program that we run. It's called the 8-Week Challenge. Mm-hmm. I think has become bigger than we really thought it would be.
Yeah,
and it's way different than what people would expect it to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'm excited to see that continue to grow into its own.
Talk about it a little bit.
Okay, so the 8-Week Challenge is basically, Amy, who's my wife, she and I were like kind of laying on the floor, and we were just talking about, some things that we felt like we needed to do a little bit differently, or to have some sort of a program that would like tie in and teach people like these necessary skills. And so it was kind of like, all right, well, let's do this, but how do we make it different? And the idea was to have a challenge where it's a period of time where you're trying to transform someone, but you're not trying to just transform like their body by these short-term quick fix things. You're trying to make a lasting change. So then it was like, well, how do you overhaul someone mentally, physically? Like, how do you go through all of that? And
you can't take an easy challenge. Like you couldn't have just done like, hey, let's try and lose 10 pounds.
Yeah, no, it needs
let's
to be.
Change your entire life.
Yeah. And that's the point. And the reason why I think about it is this. My opening speech this year was really about this idea of a cycle. Where you look at anything, there's like a life cycle of a business, or there's like. We start with this, we get to this point, we check in, we fix it, we come back, there's all these different things.
Yeah.
And as an adult, the moment you leave school, there's like no real cycle anymore. Mm-hmm. There's nothing that tells you you've leveled up to the next thing.
Yeah.
Like when you graduate from high school, you go to college and it's like, oh, yay, hooray.
Yeah.
And then when you graduate college, it's like, okay, you're done. Now you're on the real world. Yeah. And then after that, you're basically like, fucking floating out there by yourself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And when you talk about your life as a person, there's no real like start and stop and learn this, now apply this, now evaluate this, and then reinvent this.
Yeah.
And like that's kind of what I wanted the challenge to be. That's what it means to me is it's like this is a period in time where you're going to stop for a second. You need to take a look at everything that you've done. What are you not happy about? What do you want? And then let's devise a plan to get there. And the thing that is going to help you get there, whatever that piece is that if your mind and your body are working optimally.
Yeah.
So change the way that you view yourself. Change the way that you view food or exercise. Change the way you exercise. Change the way that you feel like you know, you're supposed to exist every day, or the way that you're supposed to interact with people. And in watching this happen, you know, in the 8 weeks, you know, there are things that we track that are more physical based. But what we've seen is that the retention to that program is, you know, 70% or greater. And the people who share that and bring more people in is even bigger. So every year, the number of people that participate in the challenge, we've had to cap it. And even when we cap it, we still end up letting more people in because it's like, this is a program where we want people to genuinely understand like how to become different.
Yeah.
You know, we hire a speaker to come in and talk to them about how do you change your life. We hire a chef to come in and teach you how to cook. You know, we take them to the grocery store and explain to them, this is what you should be like in some way, shape, or form when you come to the grocery store. This is how you shop intelligently. This is how you plan meals intelligently. This is how you exercise intelligently. And what happens is that people have, you know, this success in the 8-week period. And in the very beginning, for new people, they're frustrated because they're like, oh my God, like I only lost 15 pounds in 8 weeks. And it's like, hello, like that is a good thing. If you lost 20 or 30 pounds in 8 weeks, that's a problem. It's not sustainable. And then what they start to understand by the end is that like, oh, if I keep doing this, I'm going to keep like losing weight, or I'm going to keep performing at this very high level. And when we send out like surveys to inquire like how do people enjoy the experience, what have they learned, like the things that we always get back are always centered around how it's impacted their whole life. Not just how, you know, their weight or not just their performance, but it's impacted how they view themselves, or maybe their relationship with their spouse, or the way that their kids view them, or, you know, the idea that now everybody sits down and they eat a healthy dinner that was prepared instead of purchased.
That's so cool.
And now they talk at dinner and they know their kids better. And I'm performing better at work because I'm not crashing at 2:00 in the afternoon. It's like
holistic whole life.
Yeah, it is what we believe in. What I believe in is looking at the entire person, to not be another cog in the machine, you know, but to help people understand how to control the entire machine instead of just a piece of that. And that has been hugely impactful.
That's
and
really
has
cool.
been really, really good. And I really look forward to being able to grow it to something bigger, you know, and open that up.
That's really cool.
Yeah, so that would be the big pleasant surprise, because literally when we did it, we were like laying there and we were like, you know, could this work? Well, I don't know, it's rushed. Like we were going to do this, we're going to do it in 5 weeks. Like, I mean, everything down to like the time of year that we chose to do it was intentional. Because where we wanted it to be, we didn't want it to conflict with all of these other things. You know, and like that's the big thing that I always see, like January, February, March. It's like the New Year's resolution. Crew shows up to the gym, and that's always a joke. Like, how long are these people going to be around?
What do you guys do?
We don't market anything to
You
them.
leave.
Yeah, we leave. We go away. We
leave the country.
We leave the country. Yeah.
January, like this was always the thing that just because when Bobby started working there, Bobby's Allie's brother. When Bobby's working there, we'd be like, "Oh yeah, we're all going to wherever. Where do you guys go?"
Well, yeah. This year we went to. Where did we go?
You went to Miami one year.
Yeah, we went to Miami one year. This past year we went to. Why is it escaping me?
But it is almost like if.
Not at the gym.
At the very the very beginning of this whole thing, you talked about working at a place where everybody was just trying to get new signups. Like it's get new signups, and as you create Peak, and you guys just middle finger the world at new signups. Like Peak U.S. new signup period is you guys are like, actually we're not here. So there's a couple people back who will help classes.
You
keep
teach
going,
classes, whatever.
A couple people who's like, you know, couldn't go or whatever. But the rest of us are like, we're going to go party while all the other big box gyms are just trying to get all the suckers to come in for 6 weeks and forget to cancel the membership.
Right.
And that's not the type of person that we want. We want somebody who's committed to the long haul, the change. And, you know, it's like, like you said, you want somebody who is self-aware.
Yeah.
It's like those people who aren't self-aware are the ones who show up to the gym to do what they think they're supposed to do at the beginning of the year. It's like, I don't got time for that shit. Like, we're gonna pack up, we're gonna go fucking hang out, party for a week, and we'll come back.
We'll be
and
ready.
We'll be refreshed and we're ready to get back in the swing of things.
Yeah.
That's
Everybody
awesome.
else has already quit their New Year's resolution by then, and we can get into real life.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, I guess I've never really thought of it.
Oh, that's the
like that, but it's to me is like it's the perfect thing because my life goal is always to be able to travel everywhere and to travel with friends and you know, and like that's a big deal. So I never really thought about it, but
I just noticed it because we're sitting around the holidays and people were joking with Bobby about that. Like,
oh really?
Oh, it's like, you know, it's a big season for
And
you.
he's
like,
like,
actually, no, we're going to Miami.
Yeah.
And everyone's like,
what?
Yeah.
This gym you work for,
All of our aunts and
can it be
uncles are
successful?
Like, oh,
Yeah. No,
But,
it's been good.
Yeah.
That's great.
That's
very cool.
Yeah.
What has been, last thing, what has been something, first couple of years you're running, I think you've invested in yourself, something you've paid money for Peak, that's made a big difference? Something you wish you'd
Could be a
invested
tool,
in?
it could be a coach, whatever.
Book, something?
7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Really?
It's so simple, but again, the idea of investing in people, just going through those habits, not only with myself, but with the coaches, it makes communication so much better and it makes progress so much better. And like the way that kind of started was like I wanted to think about internal documents, like how people should communicate with each other in the business. And you know, what was it? There's a department store, I think it's Nordstrom, and when they show up, like your first day, like this is what I read about, you know, they give you a card, and on the card it's like, you know, do everything that you feel like is the right thing to do. Rule number 2, see rule 1. You know, and it's like, don't be an asshole. Like, do what's right. Treat people the right way. Like, you know what I mean? Like, do that shit. That doesn't need to be 20 pages of like, this is how you operate in our business. Sign here, you're gonna get fucking fired. Like, no, chill the fuck out. Like, you're a human being. Like, treat other people like human beings. And it was like, all right, well, what do I feel like is important? So the investment was actually an MP3 audio disc that I got from Amazon. And we keep it in the office. And whenever somebody new comes on, I give that to them. I tell them to upload it to their computer, and then they need to listen to it. And then we talk about it. And those habits are huge because people know that they're going to be held accountable. I know that I'm going to be held accountable. I expect to be held accountable by them. I expect to communicate. I expect to reach for great things, you know? And, you know, there was a period where you had mentioned, you know, when you exist in this company, the idea that we are all working together, right? There's the idea in the 7 Habits where it's like you're dependent, you're independent, and then you're interdependent. And it's like you're not just by yourself, or you're not just a person working in a group of things, but you are a mass of people who are all working together, you know, interconnected to accomplish particular tasks. And that's what I personally want to strive to in a company or in a business, is that I don't want there to be this organized hierarchy. You know, like I want people to have freedom and autonomy to understand the rules of engagement, and this is what we want to do, this is the end result. If you can do that, like, don't ask me, fucking go do it. You know, get it out of the way. And like you said, give people the freedom, and they're most likely not going to fail. You know what I mean? So yeah, I would say that investment was $20 MP3,
Really
you know, computer disc. And then it's funny because like people are like, well, I don't even have a CD drive on my laptop. I'm like, oh fuck. What's wrong with me now? Like, okay.
You're like, well, you're fired, I guess.
Yeah, right.
You have to listen to
You're
this.
like, well, my car does. Go sit in my car and listen to it.
Right, yeah. No, what I'll do is I've converted it to
like
a USB drive.
You make it easy for the young
That
kids.
is starting
That's
to happen.
it.
That is starting to happen though. Like our designer Erica, she graduated last year, and like she's like, oh, I don't have any of those things on my computer because she has like the newest one, and I'm like, man, I'm already out of it.
Oh shit.
Whatever.
Right.
Apple's taking like USB. Like they're just like.
They're trying to take
They're
away
just being
everything.
like, you don't need anything.
Well, they're just trying to come up with shit to give you something to
with my
sell.
cloud.
A new dongle.
So
They
yeah,
are
it is
called
what it
dongles.
is.
And on that note, with dongles, I think we're done.
Yeah, that's the end of that. Yeah.
That's been good. People can find out more about Alex at Peak Human Performance.
Peakhumanperformance.us.
Cool.
And you can even find me at howstrongiststrong.com.
You can still find Alex.
You
there.
can still find me
Instagram,
there.
Instagram too.
Instagram, IG, yeah, post up there. And at some point in my life, I will start publishing things. Because I think from my perspective, a long-term goal has always been to continue to develop people, you know, not just physically, but I'll get into speaking and writing and coaching and things like that too. So.
Beautiful.
We're excited.
If your elbow hurts, call him. He'll fix it. Thanks for coming in. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me.
Yep.